Hey everybody, it's me, Zombie, and I am covered in paint. That is because I am weathering today. Today I'm gonna show you guys some of my favorite tools that I use to weather my armor and some weathering techniques, so let's jump in. Here are some of my favorite things that I use to weather. I like to have a variety of paint brushes. Don't have to be super high quality or anything like that. I also love sponges. They're really great for giving that cool stippled effect that I'll show you guys. Some black acrylic paint. I don't get the super expensive brands or anything. I think these are like $2 or $3 per bottle. But you're gonna definitely need more than one bottle if you're doing an entire suit of armor. I also like to have water. I'll have more than 1 cup of water sitting around just in case, because I'm always rinsing my brushes or adding more water to something I've painted, and I always need more than 1 cup. I also use paper towels for weathering. I like using the higher quality kind of paper towels that aren't going to get little balls of paper fluff in your paint. I just like these because I can always have a dry paper towel to help with weathering and taking away paint or adding paint, and I don't have to keep washing and drying the same rag and waiting on it to dry to get the same kind of effect that a paper towel would give me. So you might go through a roll or two weathering your armor, but it is definitely worth it. Another tool I fancy for weathering is an airbrush. I use this occasionally just to get those really soft, nice edges and to get into all the little nooks and crannies that I can't reach with a paintbrush. So what I do after I am finished constructing my armor pieces is I use Plastic. I spray it right over the foam. It helps seal the foam so I can paint it and I don't have to worry about the paint chipping. So here is your plain Jane spray painted armor. Power armor isn't supposed to be in mint condition. They have had hundreds of years of wear and tear, and they have been out there in the nuclear wasteland for who knows how long. So they have rusted, they have layers of grime and dirt. They look really weathered and awesome. Here is the first coat of a black acrylic wash over the silver spray paint. It's a pretty stark difference. You can see all of the acrylic has stuck in all of the folds of the armor, which is good. It makes it look like dirt has been collecting there for years and years. And then I have also used my heat knife to add some weathering onto the fingertips. So I'm pretty happy with this piece, but I'm gonna go ahead and show you what the process is like with this squeaky clean one, just so you guys can get a feel for how to do it if you've never done it before. So here we go. Also, be prepared to be covered in paint. I don't wear gloves because it doesn't really help with my dexterity and picking up things, and my gloves get stuck to things and break, so I just like using my bare hands. Acrylic paint isn't super terrible for you. Just make sure to wash it off after you are done painting, and don't eat it, and don't stick it in your eye, or anything dumb you're not supposed to do with paint. Just don't do it. So I have this nice piece of paper put down over my table. And since I have my paper down, I'm just going to take my acrylic paint and just squish a little bit out over here. It's just out of frame, but I'm just squishing a little bit. Oh God, everything's fine. Look at that, perfect. Now what I'm gonna do is take a bigger paintbrush. These are like the really super cheap brushes you can get at Home Depot. You can use a higher quality one if you want to. I'm going to take my brush, stick it in my paint, so you have all of the edges all done. And what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna cover this in acrylic paint. And just make sure to squish the paint into all of the little crevices so that no silver is showing. And I do this layer kind of quick just because I don't want it to dry too much, and I want it to stay relatively even. So it's good to have, like, you know, if you do this outside, or make sure if you're inside that everything is like super plasticed off and protected, so you don't make your roommates or your parents mad at you, because I've been there. So just making sure that everything is covered. And like in the previous video that I showed you, I got some silver on my gloves, so I'm just using the acrylic to brush over the silver on the fabric. While you're painting, if you start to run low on acrylic paint, you can just use a little bit of water and really saturate everything, and you can still get that really even coat. So this glove is pretty sufficiently covered now. You see how this is really shiny and wet because we just put a bunch of water and acrylic paint on it. You're gonna wanna let it dry for a little bit. If you're really impatient, you can use a heat gun to kind of dust over it and kind of accelerate the drying process. Just make sure that it doesn't completely dry. I'm gonna show you here in a few minutes what this should look like when you wanna go ahead and take your next step. Okay, so I have let this dry just for a couple minutes. Now you can see close up where the acrylic is starting to dry around the edges and where it's starting to get a little bit more dull in the middle. It's not as super shiny as it was when we started painting it. So now what we're gonna do is we're going to scrub all of it off. I like to start with a totally dry paper towel, and I just start dabbing the paint off and even scrubbing the paint off. And if you have all of your pieces glued down, you don't have to be too shy about really getting in there and scrubbing over the top. Make sure you don't get into the creases too much because you want that acrylic paint to stick in those creases to make it look more weathered. If it's a bigger surface area, I'll actually go ahead and do it in a circular motion just because that taking off the paint that way leaves a more natural look, and it doesn't look like you have big streaks over that piece. It just looks like it has been naturally weathered. So you can kind of tell the difference there. And on the smaller digits here, I'm just getting in there and dabbing the paint, and you can see it sticking to all the creases just like I wanted to. And the paint has also sunk into a lot of the marks that I made with my heat knife. So it's sticking in all the creases. If the acrylic paint has dried just a little bit too much somewhere and you're having trouble scrubbing it off with a dry paper towel, just wet your paper towel just a little bit and scrub it off, then you'll see that a lot more paint will come off for you. Once you're done scrubbing off your desired amount of black acrylic paint, you can go back over with a new paper towel or this, or personal favorite, a sponge, and you can just start dabbing, and it'll give you this really cool, like, I don't know how to describe it. It's like this ripple texture, and it just makes it look more natural and less like you just scrubbed off paint with a paper towel. What's cool about this is you can do multiple layers. If later you decide that, hey, I added too much acrylic paint or I didn't add enough, you can always take away acrylic paint or add more. All you have to do is either scrub it off with water to get that acrylic paint out, or you can just add more acrylic paint. Either you don't have to cover the whole thing again. You can just go back with a smaller brush and just get in those little details if you want to, or you can put some acrylic paint on the edge of your sponge and you can sponge in some more black. I usually use black when weathering like wide areas like this, but if I'm wanting to add specifically dirt or rust, I'll go back with like orange or brown acrylic paint, mix it to get my desired color, and then I'll gently sponge it in or even paintbrush it in some spots. And I'll use the same technique. I will add it and then scrub some of it off, add some more, just until I think that it looks right. Okay, so here is our new glove that we just did, and here is the one that I showed you at the beginning of the video. I'm kind of liking how the paint settled into all of those scratches that I made with the heat knife. I'm sure that this might seem really primitive using like paper towels and sponges, but it's just what works best for me. It's not necessarily the right way, but it just works. So go out there, watch some other videos, read other tutorials, and figure out what works best for you. And you might come up with an even better way than this. So if you do, just tell me what you like to do to whatever you're working on. Hey everybody, so I've been working really hard. I just got done doing an acrylic wash on all of my armor, and now I am moving on to the rust, which is really fun. Here is how I have been doing that. For painting on the rust, I'm actually just using a really low quality craft brush. This actually just looks like a bunch of straw stuck on a stick, I swear. It's really bad and really bristly, but it's great for doing the stippling motion, and it also doesn't pick up a lot of paint, so you get more of like a dry brush effect, which is really great for applying a rust effect with acrylic paint. Here are the colors that I have been using. I use mostly this cheapo acrylic paint in the color coffee. It's kind of like a caramel brown. Using a big dollop of yellow and just a smidge of red. I actually thought that I had orange acrylic paint, and I came home and I realized I didn't, so I'm having to mix my own rusty orange. If you just have orange, all you'll have to do is add just a little bit of brown until you get your desired color. So here is how I've been applying the rust effect. I will show you a piece which is pretty much all done. Just need to stipple out some of the rust. I have been applying my orangey rust color, stippling it with the crappy brush into edges where water would collect and the metal would oxidize and rust would start to form. Also, I've been looking at reference pictures, and wherever I see a coat of rust, I apply it in the same place as the reference picture. So if you don't have a full grasp of how rust works, just look at your reference pictures and it'll give you a pretty good idea. I have been told that rust starts in one place and then it kind of fades out. So I have been doing that by applying more paint in the start of the area where rust would form, and then not adding any paint and stippling out, so I get like this slow fade. And to get some interest in color within the rust, I've been adding, where did that go? Oh, I have been adding brown acrylic paint to it, just in little bits. Like I'll just get a little bit on the tip of my brush and then just stipple in just a little bit. So you have like this bright orange and then kind of like a deeper, darker, rusty brown, like you would see in actual rust. Oh, I just stuck my finger right in it. That's okay, quick fix, everything's fine. And depending on how this dries, because it usually dries a little bit lighter, I might go back in and add some brown just to dull it down just a little bit, but I kind of like how it's looking so far. So yeah, that is how I add rust on top of my acrylic wash that I use to weather my armor. I hope that helps you guys. If you have any questions, just post them down in the comments and I'll get back to you as soon as possible. Happy armor making / weathering making. I would love to see your results, so post them to me on Twitter or on Facebook, and I just love seeing you guys' work. So I will see you guys next time. Thank you guys so much for watching. Bye!